Everyone. I hope everyone is doing well who's joining us tonight. I just want to say first a good evening to the students, faculty, staff, alumni, family, friends, artists, gallery representatives, and more who are all here with us tonight. We are so excited to have you. My name is Lynn Hufford. I'm a senior art history and communications double major with a French minor from Wilton, Connecticut. I want to first introduce to you some of our committee members, or all of our committee members, which you see here tonight on the Zoom screen. Everyone can give a wave hello. We're thrilled for the chance to share the culmination of 5 months of research, collaboration, and deliberation, which led to the choices to be revealed tonight. At this time, I would like to extend a warm and sincere thank you to Dr. David Finn, Dr. Jay Curley, and Dr. Jennifer Finkel for their consistent advisement and encouragement, plus their commitment to the arts here at Wake Forest. As a collective committee, we want to thank you for your time, your energy, and leadership that made this experience possible, especially during these unprecedented times. We would also like to say thank you to Provost Rogan Kirsch and the Provost Office for their continued support of the program. Lastly, our committee would like to say thank you to Mark H. Reese for creating this remarkable program that continues to be a model for other university collections and acts as a premier way for students to foster leadership, develop community, engage critically with the art world, and contribute meaningfully to Wake Forest University. Additionally, thank you to J.D. Wilson, who was on the 1969 buying trip, for his continued support of the students, Wake the Arts, and this program specifically. On that note, Wake Forest University is gearing up for our 60th anniversary of the program, if you can believe it. And 2023 marks the 60th anniversary, and the academic year of 2023 to 2024 will have a full schedule of events and exhibitions associated with the occasion. There will also be events leading up to the 60th, which will include events and programming this fall when the new acquisitions will be on display in Hein's Gallery. So please stay tuned for more information on all of those events that are upcoming. And I'm going to, in the chat now, or I think in the, well, anyway, in the chat, I will later send the art collections page where you can find all that information. So speaking of the chat, as we go through tonight's presentation, please feel free to leave us questions in the Q&A section, which is found at the bottom of the screen. And at the end, we'll have time where we can answer as many of those questions as possible. So now let's get started. The first purchases for the Wake Forest University Student Union Collection of Contemporary Art were made in 1963. Since its inception, the students on the committee have felt an immense responsibility to purchase works of art that would have a lasting effect on the campus community. The mission of the collection and the only criteria for our purchases is to acquire works that reflect the times. As a result, the Wake Forest University Student Union Collection of Contemporary Art has not only become a preeminent art collection, but also acts as a visual diary of the past 57 years. So, purchasing works that reflect the year 2020. Easy, right? I mean, what a cakewalk this past year has been. In all seriousness, though, the year 2020 was a year of reckoning. In the midst of a global pandemic, a critical presidential election, and national protests against racial injustice in our country, tension hung in the air at all times. Our committee talked endlessly about what these times truly meant, and as such, we decided that the overarching goal for the works we selected this semester was that we wanted it to be an intervention. While the Student Union Collection acts as a visual diary of the past 57 years, looking back on the works collected also reminded our committee of whose diary of narrative is largely reflected on the walls. We recognize that, like many art institutions, it is imperfect and in some ways exclusionary. As such, our committee intended to purchase works that would capture a diverse array of individual narratives. Our selections were diverse demographically, but also diverse by medium. The works selected are multimedia, photographs, prints, and oil paintings. As a committee, we understand the impact of this collection and the history which is threaded into its very fabric. This experience has been incredibly formative for each of us, and we thank Wake Forest University for giving us this incredible opportunity. We look forward to sharing all these incredible works with you tonight. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Jackie Dishner, who will give us a behind-the-scenes look at what this virtual experience was really like.
Hello, my name is Jacqueline Dishner, and I'm a senior art history major and English minor from London. In an overwhelming and unprecedented year, the Student Union Art Acquisition Committee was still able to purchase 9 incredible works of art without ever seeing them in person. The virtual format became crucial in the art world, as in 2020, online sales in the art market reached a record high of $12.4 billion, doubling in value on the previous year. There were so many changes for the committee this year, and among them was the number of students involved. The Student Union Art Acquisition Committee normally takes 6 to 7 students, but this year we were able to have 13 students a part of this unique group. This allowed for more opinions to be heard, more artists to be researched, and more themes to be discussed. It definitely felt difficult at times to manage a group of 13 passionate students and 3 very passionate faculty advisors, but overall, each of the committee members played an important role in debating and selecting the thought-provoking works to be purchased. Purchasing art virtually was very hard for all of us at first because we could not grasp the scale, textures, patterns, and materiality of each of the works on a two-dimensional screen. But as the process continued on, we were able to use the technological innovations that came out of the pandemic to enhance our virtual buying experience. We Zoomed with each gallery, which allowed us to speak to the gallery representatives and some of the artists themselves about the process, material, and importance of the specific work in question. Additionally, we were in contact with the galleries to send high-resolution photographs and videos of the art to try and understand the dimensionality and size even more clearly. The virtual format opened our options to galleries from Los Angeles, Denver, Chicago, Detroit, and New York instead of being confined to just one city. Additionally, it enabled the group to be at the forefront of the changes in the art world and be able to navigate the virtual setting, which proved to be the wave of the future. Although the 58-year-long tradition of going to New York City to purchase art was stopped, we were able to bring Wake Forest University and the Student Union Art Acquisition Committee into the new digital art market. All in all, the committee was able to find a silver lining of 2020 and 2021 and adapt to the time we are living in. We responded to the times in more than one way by collecting works with diverse themes, embracing new mediums, and navigating the virtual art landscape due to the pandemic. And now, Maddie Barnick is going to discuss the cultural context of 2020.
Hi, my name is Maddie Barnick, and I'm a junior majoring in art history with a double minor in studio art and journalism from Stratford, Connecticut. This past year, I've been so fortunate to have gotten to be part of the 2021 Student Union Art Acquisition Committee, and I'm very excited to be here today to speak about the social context of 2020 in both the contemporary art market and world, which informed not only what artists are making, but also what we as a group decide to purchase. To begin, it's important to understand that art and politics have never been separate entities. They're married. Together, they reflect the contemporary moment and the experiences of individuals, groups, and communities of that time. With the emergence of a global pandemic, Black Lives Matter movements, protests, police brutality, LGBTQ rights, a presidential election, and overall world chaos, the art world, the artists, galleries, platforms, auction houses, and museums all reacted in individual but loosely united ways. First, with the shutdowns of galleries, museums, exhibition spaces, artists turned to social media platforms and the internet to promote themselves, the work they were creating, as well as social movements they were part of. Museums and galleries faced backlash in response to their support of political idioms and movements, which led to the overhauls of some programs. In addition, these shifts in the physical art world, social media, and digital art led to the rise of NFTs, which work to place a value on digital art, which has been freely and readily available. In addition to COVID forcing artists to reach their audiences in new ways, protests, police brutality, immigrant policies, and other movements such as Me Too has led to artists in 2020 and 2021 to use their own positionality to create pushback and decentralize the colonial gaze, making space in the canon of art history for bodies who have historically been invisible or unheard. In our own purchases, we looked at artists who inserted themselves and their identities into these areas typically dominated by white males. Finally, the growing desire for visibility of all people, as well as the highly digitized world, has led to many artists to turn to craft and reappropriating the canon of art history. Specifically, artists such as Kehinde Wiley and Mickalene Thomas refer to West African photography to create Black portraiture. Other artists use textile and embroidery to make visible the histories of colonialism, but in relation to contemporary issues. Overall, the social context of 2020 and 2021 has led artists to work towards speaking out against the structures and hierarchies which create barriers to enter. Artists use the political movements to activate change and create inclusivity. Next, I'll be handing it over to Lucy Chapman to talk about our first purchase. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Lucy Chapman. I'm a sophomore studying studio art and art history and journalism. I'm so excited to open the reveal of our collection with this work. It's called Queer Rage, Don't Touch the Art by Martine Gutierrez. Martine is a transgender female Indigenous artist. Something I find fascinating about Martine is that she executes every artistic decision in her works. She is responsible for staging, lighting, makeup, costuming, modeling, and photography. This work was produced in 2018 in her magazine called Indigenous Woman. The 126-page magazine is glossy and chic, mimicking the high fashion photography of Vogue or Elle. However, it is important to note that Gutierrez says her work is quite the opposite of a celebrity or lifestyle magazine. Instead, it is a critique. She uses the glossy format to subvert rigid constructs and dichotomies of male versus female, reality versus fantasy, and minority versus white. When our group first saw this work, we were all immediately obsessed. We only became more fascinated as the months went on until the date of our decision. Fun fact, we were all so excited about this work that each of us purchased our own edition of the Indigenous Woman magazine. We love this work for the way Martine boldly inserts her body into a space where it is not historically welcome. She is standing in a New York museum that is a space predominantly for white male artists of the 18th century. You can see in the paintings behind her the classic reclining female nude, as well as a roped-off chair. Therefore, when she stands in this space and kisses the bust with her pink lipstick, she is challenging the canon of art history. She is interrogating the museum as an institution. She is commanding to be seen and admired. We were also drawn to the irony in the title, Don't Touch the Art, contrasted with her actions in the photo. She is touching, kissing, and moving art history. Additionally, the idea of touching a work of art can be compared to the horrible ways that transgender bodies are highly policed and highly sexualized. We drew a connection of the title to Martine announcing her own body as a piece of untouchable art. We are also happy to announce that this piece is dedicated to Bob Knott, who passed away in 2010. Bob Knott led Wake Forest Art Department through its formative years and guided the beginning of the Student Union collection of contemporary art. He was a historian, teacher, artist, and leader in the art department here at Wake. We chose to dedicate this piece to Bob Knott because of the way it boldly interrogates art in the museum space. It is a dynamic and engaging work that will challenge and teach students on this campus for many years to come. Now I will pass it off to Chrisanne to speak about another work of photography.
Hi everyone, my name is Chrisanne Timby and I'm a junior double majoring in political science and art history from Fort Worth, Texas. This work is by Zaneli Maholi, who is a non-binary South African visual activist and photographer. Zaneli Maholi became familiar to us as they were shown in the 58th Venice Biennale and then taught to us in our global contemporary art class last fall. We were absolutely captivated by their work's striking quality. The piece we are so excited to have purchased is entitled Thendue 1, Roanoke, Virginia, and was produced in 2018 from Maholi's ongoing series called Samyoma Namyoma, which translates from Izulu to Hail the Dark Lioness. In this black and white self-portrait series, Maholi dons themselves with everyday objects that are transformed into symbolic props to address salient moments in history. This photograph was taken in Virginia, which caught our attention as their work is taken in different places all across the globe. Here, Maholi is draped in a head wrap of US currency featuring the faces of former American presidents while emerging from a background of hazy trees on Southern American soil. Elements of this photograph allude to when Black South Africans were photographed by Europeans as a means to display white supremacy. The head covering alludes to the connection between the history of American exploitation of Black individuals for capitalist gains during the horrors of slavery. The blurring of the landscape suggests a loss of memory or forgetfulness, while American trees hold a disturbing symbolism with their connection to the enslavement of Black individuals. To us, these elements raise questions of how America confronts and reconciles a history of violence and disenfranchisement of Black individuals. Maholi's eyes captivate the viewer in a way that demands attention and declares that Maholi's presence as a queer and Black body is allowed to take space in areas previously excluded, such as Roanoke, Virginia, and the walls of art establishments. In post-production, they darken the contrast of their skin as a means to defy the colonialist aesthetic and display the beauty of dark melanin skin. Through this work, Maholi reclaims their Blackness and subverts the narrative of global oppression of Black individuals, which is a narrative we wanted to include in this year's collection. Thank you for your time. Now, Emma Cooney is going to talk about another amazing photograph.
Hi, my name is Emma Cooney, and I'm a sophomore art history major from Rye, New York. I'm excited to present this work by Jalen Gomez, formerly Ramiro Gomez, and David Feldman. Jalen Gomez is a trans female Mexican-American artist born into an immigrant family in California. After dropping out of art school, she worked as a live-in nanny to a wealthy family. This experience inspired much of her work today as she exposes the problematic relationships between laborers and their privileged employers. Gomez's art brings attention to the often hidden workers around us. As this print will hang in Benson University Center, where much of Wake Forest staff and faculty work, we found it an essential addition to the collection. This archival pigment print is entitled Las Meninas, North Faring Road, Bel Air, 2013. It captures Gomez's cardboard cutout installation, photographed by David Feldman, Gomez's collaborator and partner. Within the image, you can see the elaborate gates of a Bel Air mansion behind three figures. Gomez frequently has used cardboard within her practice. The medium gives her figures and the work itself an ephemeral quality, mirroring society's treatment of these workers as disposable. As some of you may recognize, Gomez references Diego Velázquez's Las Meninas by copying the princess figure in the center. Velázquez's positionality mirrors Gomez, as both received an insider's view into a privileged world. Gomez leaves the princess unchanged, revealing how the modern Bel Air princess is not dissimilar from the princesses of the 17th century. Kneeling on either side, Gomez chooses to modernize the meninas as nannies. These modern-day ladies-in-waiting are depicted as blurred and faceless, symbolizing their instability and lack of identity. Gomez's print is a direct intervention into a privileged space, and we hope her work will reshape and redirect its new viewers on campus to those hidden behind the scenes. Now, Lucy Owen will present on our next artist.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Lucy Owen, and I'm a sophomore majoring in art history from South Carolina. We're all so excited to have you here tonight. Between Body and Soul is a print by Black American artist Willie Cole. We are so excited to announce our acquisition of a piece by Cole because he has, in a way, been with us through this whole process. In the fall, Hein's Gallery had an exhibition called Explorations of Self, Black Portraiture from the Cochrane Collection. Not only was Willie Cole print featured in this exhibition, he appeared at a virtual artist talk, which was hosted by our committee's very own Jackie Dishner and Sarah Kameno. Suffice it to say, our committee has been drawn to Cole since the beginning of our search. Our attraction to Cole has a lot to do with Cole's own fascination with the household iron. Cole's interest in the modern iron began in 1988 when he noticed that it resembled both an African mask when positioned vertically and an overhead layout of a slave ship when horizontal. Irons also bring to mind shackles, which enslaved people would wear as they traveled through the Middle Passage, as well as the idea of branding as a sign of slave ownership. Positioned over a bright oceanic background, Cole includes in this work, on the left, an index of the parts of a modern iron, and on the right, disparate artifacts from across the African continent in the United States, detailed in the list next to the objects. Cole arranges these objects to collectively mirror the mechanically produced iron on the left, effectively creating a visual comparison between left and right, east and west, mechanical and cultural. However, these objects on the right, like Black Americans, are neither entirely of the West, from Africa, or the East, white America, and are thereby portrayed in the ocean between. The Black experience in America, as Cole argues, is more a transatlantic experience than one of a single stable location. And now, Anna will be speaking about another incredible print.
Hello, my name is Anna Burkhart, and I'm a junior double majoring in studio art and business and enterprise management from Greenville, South Carolina. I really can't say enough about how incredible and meaningful this experience has been, and everyone I know can say the same. So I'm speaking on Rashawn Rucker's work that you see here, Tapestry of My Soul. Rucker grew up here in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, where most all of us are speaking from, and currently lives and works in Detroit. And so, unique from the other purchases, this work was created by a Southern artist, honors the South, his Southern experience, and will be displayed in the South. Rashawn Rucker assembles curated icons that resonate deeply with his North Carolina home to explore the foundation of his being and his cultural identity as a Black man in America. Portraits of family, including Rucker's grandfather, grandmother, and father, and icons of home adorn the quilt. You'll also notice religious motifs such as communion and hands folded in prayer that remind Rucker of his religious upbringing. Patterns in the quilt nod to the abolitionist movement, as well as the women of Gee's Bend, Alabama, who've created hundreds of beautiful quilts since the early 20th century. Printmaking, like the art of quilting, is a process of assemblage and a connection with self. So by connecting with himself through the drafting of this quilt-like print, Rucker rediscovers and honors his identity. And so you might be wondering, why a quilt? A quilt is a sturdy blanket providing protection and warmth, just as the people represented in Rucker's work and others provided for him. Traditional quilts combine regularly repeating patterns to create an even weight across the surface. Rucker's quilt is not symmetrical, but rich with emotion and unexpected design. He remembers the quilts that he slept under at his great-grandparents as a significant source of comfort and security. By taking various parts and creating a sense of wholeness, Rucker exposes a side of history that has otherwise been hidden, the personal celebratory story of Black men in America. This is in stark contrast to what is typically highlighted by the media, the deaths and unjust treatment of Black men. Black masculinity, which has been criminalized and vilified under patterns of systematic racism and societal oppression, is what Rucker elevates within this work. Literally and figuratively interconnected, the images in this quilt serve as a nostalgic representation of Rashawn Rucker's soul, hence the title, Tapestry of My Soul. It is the embodiment of his being that will serve as a record for future generations, both within Rucker's family and Black men in America. And now I'm gonna pass it off to Mikey, who's gonna speak on the first of our mixed media pieces.
Hi everyone, my name is Mikey Matone. I am a senior double majoring in studio art and business enterprise management from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Today, I have the honor and privilege to be speaking about Suchitra Matai's In One Fell Swoop. This piece is made out of found fabric, tassels, zippers, a vintage needlepoint, and even a piece of Matai's hair. I personally love this piece because of all of these combining of materials into one. Matai is originally from the country of Guyana, which is in the northeastern region of South America. However, she has ancestral ties to India. At the age of 3, she then moved from Guyana to Nova Scotia, Canada, and then throughout the continental US, and she is currently located in Denver, Colorado. This piece includes ties of her identity throughout the artwork. The use of her hair is a definite nod to the importance of hair and its symbolism in Hindi culture. The use of sequins is a nod to Carnival in Guyana, and they also have this dual-sided meaning, the one of Carnival, but also they look like the flickering light on the ocean. And she talks a lot about this transatlantic passage that her ancestors came from and how that influences her work. Finally, we land upon the needlepoint in the middle of the work. This is actually a needlepoint of a Raphael painting, Raphael Sanzio, which is the Raphael, the one the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles named after, but it is of Madonna and Child. Raphael was known as a humanistic painter, so I really focus on the human qualities of Madonna and Child. I really love this piece because it has a reemergence of craft in it. This is something that's happening in the contemporary art world right now. Craft is a form of making which produces an object that has a function, something you can wear, eat, or drink from. Examples include either needlepoint, quilting, or pottery. These were forms of art that were normally confined to the domestic sphere and seen as hobbies as opposed to quote unquote fine art. This tactility that craft provides is something that we all felt the absence of during COVID, want to touch our loved ones when we couldn't be together. This work both reconciles Matai's identity while also connecting us with the complexities of personal identity. I see this work as a dedication to a two-folded dedication. One, to women who came before Matai, people like my grandmother who were quilters and needle pointers, but also to people that have not felt a sense of place and belonging. I personally believe that the best place for belonging for this piece is in our collection. And now I'm going to pass it off to Emma Hein, who will be talking about another amazing mixed media piece we bought.
Hi, everyone. My name is Emma Hein, and I am sadly a graduating senior with double majors in studio art and communications. Before I begin speaking about this incredible work, I wanted to preface that this piece contains themes of interpersonal violence and relationship violence. It is encouraged that you take care of yourself as needed, including reaching out for support. Lynn will send a few resources in the chat for you to use as needed. This piece is by Betty Tompkins, an American female artist born in 1945 who creates bodies of work that represents the female body and perspective. Living in New York during the 1970s and 80s, Betty faced many barriers. As her work depicts female bodies and sexual acts, she was rejected by earlier feminist movements and kept out of many institutions and galleries. In recent years, however, Betty is finally getting the attention she long deserved. As the feminist movement has progressed and institutions and galleries are finally recognizing Betty's work as important and influential and reappropriating the art historical canon of the female body. The work we purchased is from her ongoing series, Woman Words, which started in 2002. Woman Words is a series that investigates the language used to depict women, as Betty was interested in the way that language can create a visual and how society feels about women at large. Starting off the project in 2002, Betty sent an email asking for words or phrases that described women. Over 3,500 words and phrases were submitted, equally split between male and female and written in 7 different languages. While filtering through responses, Betty ripped out art historical masterpieces, and when a certain piece and/or response spoke to her, she would write over the art historical work in pastel pink the words or phrases submitted to her. The specific work we chose to purchase is titled Women Words on Gras number 3. For this work, Betty chose to use an art historical textbook image of Jean-Auguste Dominique Gras's Madame Monsieur, a work that presents an idealized female figure of wealth and prominence. Betty's choice to use this particular portrait, one that examines themes of timeless feminine beauty and our perceptions of it, obscuring the statuesque female figure with the ugly words of a woman describing the abuse she has experienced throughout her life. Her reflection is untouched, creating a powerful commentary on the way that society's perceptions and judgments have the ability to influence our own personality, identity, and feelings of selves. These words create a barrier of sorts in front of the female figure, showing the lasting trauma and barriers abuse can have on an individual. Betty Tompkins is unapologetically controversial, and her works are the same. Woman Words on Gras 3 is putting the ugly and traumatic words associated with a lifetime of abuse on display in conversation with how women have been represented within the art historical canon. It was important for our committee to purchase a work that embodied the feminist perspective, as 2016 was the year of the #MeToo movement sparked, where social media became the platform where women could publicly speak out about sexual harassment they faced. While the phrase has been coined more than a decade earlier by Tarana Burke, #MeToo has finally reached its moment. Like this hashtag, Betty Tompkins' work has finally found her moment of prominence. While she has been making art for decades, the issues of misogyny and sexism that she's addressed has never been more relevant in public discourse than in the last 4 years. Thank you all for listening. Next up, we will have Sarah, who will be talking about our first amazing painting that we chose to collect.
Thank you, Emma, and thank you, everyone. Like Emma said, my name is Sarah Kameno, and I am a senior art history major and a cultural heritage and preservation studies minor. I am also honored and privileged to be speaking with you tonight. Many of us have been waiting for the opportunity to be a part of the acquisitions process for our collections, and I am no different. So like Emma said, I will be speaking about the first of our paintings tonight, Jorge Tacla's May 25th, 2020, which brings us to the penultimate work we will be speaking about this evening. I would first like to thank both Jorge and his gallery for being here tonight and their support through this process. We're very excited that you are joining us. Diversity in subject matter, artists, and medium was very important to us in this process. As you can see from my fellow committee members that have spoken before me, and the addition of the 2 oil paintings is something we are all very excited about. Jorge Tacla is a Chilean and Syrian artist whose life has been categorized by witnessing political and civil unrest. Growing up in Chile, Tacla witnessed the coup in the 1970s and moved to New York City and has been living and practicing between there and Santiago ever since. Tacla's experience of continuously witnessing political and social unrest has led him to create a body of work that reflects uprising and otherwise lost narratives. When discussing May 25th, 2020, I would like to explore the idea of collective memory, or a shared memory of a group. As you all know, May 25th, 2020 is the day that Derek Chauvin murdered George Floyd in the streets of Minneapolis, catalyzing a resurgence of the Black Lives Matter movement, and with it, a mainstream discourse on race, equity, inclusion, and the systemic injustices present in our country. The impact of this movement is widespread and a true lasting hallmark of this past year. So in the search for works that are reflective of the times, we felt it was especially important to include one discussing the Black Lives Matter movement. May 25th, 2020 was inspired by a single catalytic instance, but reflects a larger movement of demanding equity and justice. Viewers can understand the imagery as a representation of the collective memory of this time and the unity we felt in an era of separation and isolation. Tacla explores the boundaries of both history and memory, both formally and conceptually, by creating a contemporary history painting which acts as an archive of this moment, with its poignancy derived from its bodily presence. The work's medium, oil with cold wax, is an incredibly important part when discussing this piece, as it contributes to the work's physical presence as well as larger conceptual implications. Cold wax medium involves a wax-based mixture that one adds to oil paint, composed of beeswax, a resin, and a solvent. Often the mixture is applied with a palette knife or scraper due to its consistency. It is then manipulated and scraped off to give a lasting impression of the pigment and can also hold a 3-dimensional presence on canvas or other desired surfaces. Tacla makes great use of this incredible tactile quality in his repeated etching and blurring of the figures that he creates within the work. Up close, one can observe the very tangible qualities of the medium, seeing its texture continuously repeated throughout the work, creating an almost sewn, blurred, and dreamlike quality to the piece. I discussed the medium at length because Tacla himself compares the medium to a kind of skin, having such a soft and natural presence, but which can also be easily mutilated and abused. This idea of lacerated skin and wounds is emphasized in the red hue of the vertical strip within the work, which offers both a disruption in the painting and a reminder of the blood and mortality. This repetition of the disruption and patterning of the wax also evokes a sense of repeated trauma to bodies, adding to the sense of bodily harm. The work overall represents a moment of unity during a time when we were forced to be separate. So thank you for listening to me, and now I would like to introduce my fellow committee member, Amy, for our final piece of the evening.
All right, hello everyone. My name is Amy Dykman and I'm from Princeton, New Jersey. I'm a senior double majoring in political science and French studies with a minor in art history. I am so excited to be showing you all for the first time Salman Tour's The Meeting. Salman Tour is a Pakistani artist who is raised in Lahore and currently works in New York City. He was initially classically trained in the style of the old masters, but has since shifted his practice to showing images of the daily lives of queer brown men in the impressionistic style. We were initially drawn to Tour because of the exquisite way he handles the paint. He paints very quickly and fluidly with looping brushstrokes that give the work a yummy quality, as he describes it. Lynn and I were actually fortunate enough to see his work in person over winter break, and honestly, the quality and the way that he was portraying these everyday intimate moments was mesmerizing, and I did not want to leave. In Tour's words, this is a scene of a charming meeting, a flirtation at a rooftop party at night. One of the protagonists is someone like me, could be an expat South Asian that I know. Figures in the background become gargoylishly animated, as if amused by this unlikely match. In this work, the couple is staring directly at each other, adding to the sense that we as the viewer, like the figure in the background, are intruding on a private moment. One thing that we find really intriguing in Tour's work is the recurring theme of observing and being observed. The figures experience a sort of double consciousness, meaning that they're aware not only of how they see themselves, but also how they're being seen by others due to their race or sexuality. One aspect that Tor discusses often in his work is his experience of the South Asian diaspora. He is a man who is from two countries, but truly at home in neither. We can see this reflected in how the brown figure stands out against the rest of the green work. Even then, the green of the background seeps into his face a few brushstrokes at a time, showing that he does somehow relate to the environment that he's in. We were also drawn to Tor's use of this almost monochromatic green palette in many of his nighttime paintings. For Tor, the green refers to Islam, absinthe, poison, an oasis, and Slytherin. It adds a really unique, almost dreamlike quality to Tor's works that really seems to drag the viewer into his world. Tor is also using the aesthetic language of Western art history, drawing on Impressionism and the Renaissance, to assert his position as a queer brown artist. Like many other works that we eventually acquired, he is challenging the straight white narrative that is all too present in art history. The meeting is not only interrogating our perception of art history, but is also making us question the way that we see brown bodies, queer brown bodies in our everyday lives. Now, Leah is going to discuss how our acquisitions are in dialogue with the rest of the collection.
Hi, my name is Leah Rodman, and I'm a junior double majoring in studio art and women's gender and sexuality studies with a minor in politics and international affairs from Miami, Florida. In almost 60 years, the Student Union collection has evolved from what started as an experiment to a complete collection of leading contemporary art that functions as a time capsule that spans the social and political environment of the past 6 decades. The collection was founded with 2 objectives in mind. The first being to collect examples of art created during each student generation, and the second to bring awareness to the college's shortcomings in these areas. As the budget, size of the department, and the professionalism of the trip changed throughout the years, putting students at the forefront of all decision-making would remain the same. The collection serves as a demonstration of the shift of art from financial investments to a tool for social demonstration, used to spark dialogue on campus. Each year, students strive to push their boundaries, ranging from the materiality shown throughout the evolution of the collection as it began to incorporate newer digital imagery and photos, to the dialogue intended to bring to campus with the inclusion of a more diverse range of artists. In the midst of heightened social, political, and environmental issues, after a year of unprecedented loss, the illumination of hundreds of years of social injustice and inequality rooted in systemic issues, and the turnover of a presidential administration, we were tasked with purchasing art on behalf of the university that embodied the contemporary moment. Like the student collectors of 1993, whose acquisition followed the Rodney King LA riots, we embarked on a somewhat parallel journey to collect a body of work that illuminates the voices of historically marginalized artists from the contemporary art world and from the narratives of our history and storytelling that we engage with on a day-to-day basis on campus. We attempted to confront the missing gaps that exist within the current body of work, and in many ways serve as a microcosm of the contemporary art world, which has a history of exclusion and inaccessibility. As of 2020, the Student Union collection consisted of 106 works, with the majority of these pieces being prints, followed by a similar number of paintings, fewer photographic prints, and sculptures, and lastly, a small number of drawings, hanging pieces, mixed media works, and carvings. Of these 106 pieces, 75% of the artists included in the collection are male and 25% are female, with over 75% of them being domestic artists, 10% local, and more than 15% international. Of these primarily male American artists, over 80% were of Western descent, while less than 5% included people of color. While we recognize that our collection could by no means rectify the years of silencing experienced by artists of marginalized communities, we strive to collect a body of work that confronts the history of oppression that exists within our Wake Forest community, including slavery and the possession of Indigenous land, while also attempting to permeate dialogue throughout our campus that centers around the illumination of different experiences. As a result, we collected the most diverse body of work in representation, thematic illustration, and materiality. 9 works that reflect our efforts to begin a much needed discussion and emphasis on the urgency to center and uplift the voices of underrepresented artists. Of the 9 artists represented in the works we acquired, 4 are female identifying, 8 are Black and Indigenous people of color, and 3 represent the LGBTQ+ community. Our collection emulates the efforts started in 1993, which serve to recontextualize the ways we discuss global issues, to put the individuals impacted by these issues at the forefront of these narratives and discourse, and lead to new conversations on campus.
So much for everyone for coming again. It's so exciting even now to still be seeing all of those works and going through it all and finally having the opportunity to share it with more people. I also want to reiterate that our 60th anniversary is coming up. So I'm sending in the chat the link where you can find some more information on that. Also, just to clarify, these works will be hanging in the fall in Haynes Gallery in Scales. So feel free to come check that out. We're really excited for all these works to be in a single space together. At this point in time, I would love to begin by fielding some questions to our panelists, our committee members, just so you guys can hear a little bit more about our process. So to start, I want to field this question to Lucy Chapman. One person asked, actually my dad, but that's fine, asked, how are the individual works chosen? Were you able to speak with the artists?
Yes, so our process of gathering artists and pieces that we were interested in began in the fall after we were all selected for this committee. So as soon as we were selected, we started meeting in groups, and each of us would bring from 2 to 5 artists that we wanted to present to the group. I would say through the entire process, we probably considered around 200 artists. So it was a process of talking about artists, their works that were even available, the themes that they presented, things like that. So over the next few months, we had to start narrowing down our list, which was really difficult. A big obstacle for us was figuring out how we were even going to go about that in the first place, considering this is an entirely student-led committee and we had no rules. So towards the end, where we were getting close to making our decision, we reached out to a short list of galleries representing artists we were interested in. And then on a day that we didn't actually have class, we set up Zoom appointments with galleries basically all day. We went for several hours and we met with galleries. We were able to speak with them about questions we had about the work, the process, and logistics of the piece. In some of those, we were able to speak with the artists, not all of them though. But it was really an amazing opportunity to get to talk with galleries and with some artists and get to see into that realm of the art world and the art market.
Lucy was kind of noting, it was so interesting to see the virtual art world play out and really have that experience as well. So next, I want to field a question to Anna Burkhart. This is from Christina Soriano, beautiful, lovely human being that you are. She is curious if experience created a stronger bond for all of us in such a way that we will return to Wake more often after we graduate.
I would definitely say yes. I'm not a senior, so I can't necessarily speak totally on this, but I know many of the seniors, because we won't have all the works in time when they graduate, plan on coming back to see the pieces. And we've also talked to previous committee members, and I loved hearing them talk about how whenever they come to campus, they take a tour of all the pieces that they bought. And I definitely plan on doing the same. And I feel like I can speak for the rest of the group that they will as well. And just seeing the pieces coming on campus will remember the experience. So.
I agree. It's almost like we have a little memorabilia of this time, and it's really exciting for all of us, and we will definitely be returning, don't worry. And then next, this question is for Mikey from Provost Kirsch. He was talking about how you mentioned the idea of longing that we all felt during COVID-19 and this feeling that we want to connect with one another. So he was wondering about the extent to which our individual and collective choices were openly or subconsciously affected by the pandemic, and any reflections on that influence, apart, of course, from not being able to travel to New York City and view the works in person.
Definitely. So we really wanted to get a work that reflected COVID, as it was such an intense part of our past 4 years. We kind of found it difficult to find these works as artists were creating while we were also trying to search. The piece that I presented on in one fell swoop was actually made during what I'm coining the Great Quarantine of 2020. And so Matai actually had to use what was available in her studio to her because she couldn't get anything shipped to her. And this was kind of our one piece that related to COVID, but we also wanted to create a breadth of pieces that really represented all of these incredible social movements that were happening during our time. Additionally, we didn't meet as a group until January, late January. And so I, knew Chris Ann, but I saw her on the first day and I was like, who is this person? So it was really great to finally get that sense of community together. And I think kind of nodding to the last question, we really did bond together in a great way.
It was very fun to see heights of certain people. I'm sure everyone was surprised to see how small I was, but that's okay. Anyway, but moving on from that, thank you so much, Mikey, for sharing that. And next, there was a question that was about how these works are going to be installed and contextualized for the larger Wake Forest community at large, and sort of where we would like to see these works exhibited, and especially potentially in the future, certain spaces that we might like to have these works in. So Emma, I was wondering if you could speak on that a little bit.
Of course, Lynn. So as Lynn said before, all these works will be presented next semester within the Haynes Gallery, located within Scales. And so we'll have a representative there full time that will be able to answer questions about the work. And also we will have little labels next to the work to kind of go into a little bit more detail. And then also people can go on the website to learn more about our previous collection and more about that. After the first semester, this will be part of a public collection for all the students to see. So if you walk within Benson, walk within the halls, you can see these works framed, and you can also see the text next to it. And for work specifically for Betty Tompkins, which I presented on, we know that it does cover a lot of themes that may be triggering for some students. So we've been working with different organizations on campus, such as the SAFE office and the Women's Center, to properly present this work and make sure that we give the resources necessary for students if they are impacted by these works, as they are pretty emotional. And so in the future, we would love any future donors or anyone that has a little bit of pocket change that would love to make a little gallery so we can show our previous collections and our future ones and have that in a safe spot. So
such an incredible thing to have on our campus, a permanent space that's dedicated to this collection, which is so important, and having these works all in conversation with each other would be probably one of the most impactful things that we could have. So but anyway, moving on to the next question. Thank you, Emma, so much. So a couple of people were asking a little bit about like points of negotiation or potential conflicts that came up throughout the process, as there are 13 of us, 13 opinions, 13 art people. So Sarah, I was curious if you could, touch on that a little bit and kind of talk about sort of what were like the hardest parts of going through this process.
Mm-hmm. So thank you all for your questions. Like it has been said before, we became very close and we're very grateful to be able to be in a space together to have these very important decisions. I know there are a lot of questions about the finances coming through, but finances bring out interesting things in people as well. And art is such a subjective and deeply personal thing that we all were so invested in this process the entire time that when there were artists or pieces that we truly loved and truly wanted to stand behind, we were very grateful for the rest of our committee members respecting that and understanding that, and being able to share in that experience about understanding the importance of buying a work on Black Lives Matter, or the Me Too movement, or any kind of representation. And also the own constraints of our own collection kind of came into play as well. There were some sculptural works that we did discuss during the process, but due to the way that we present our works, we decided and deliberated as a committee that we cannot serve them justice. So that dedicated space also came into play as well. But there were some very impassioned moments. We are all very passionate about this project. As myself and some other community members or committee members like to say, this is our legacy on Wake Forest's campus, and we don't take that lightly. So I'm very grateful that we were all able to passionately but civilly discuss this and come to a decision. Also, having an odd number was definitely helpful, because I think that things really came down to the wire towards the end, but I think that all of us are so just in awe and so appreciative and grateful for the works that we did end up purchasing. and for the experience that this was.
So much there. I mean, it's a hard question to answer, but I think too, just always kind of going back to the goals that we set out in the beginning was really important for all of us in selecting the final works. Next, this question I'm going to field to Jackie. Someone asked, how did the context of the UAC hung in Benson and other buildings around campus influence our selections?
Yeah, so this was something that we thought a lot about. We had several works of art that we were really interested in purchasing, specifically sculptures and very large scale works of art, about 20 feet long, that we really loved and really wanted to bring into Wake Forest's collection, specifically because of their political and cultural relationship to the world we're living in. But we kind of realized that we would not be able to give them a space that they could live in positively in Benson, just because it is a public collection that's in an area that students are walking through constantly. And so it isn't a private gallery space that is a little bit more safe for something like a sculpture. So that definitely really informs the works that we purchased, and is why all of the works that we purchased will be hung on a wall and will be easily be able to be seen in Benson for the foreseeable future.
For giving us your perspective on that. That was really helpful. And then the next question that I have is from Professor O'Neill. Maddie, I'm going to ask you this question. She asked how it's exciting to think about how these works might be used in other art history classes when discussing Angers, for example, in relation to Betty Tompkins. And that, like, a lot of us are art history or art studio art department majors and minors. So how are we thinking about contemporary art in relation to art history in general? And were we thinking about possible educational opportunities in art history classes throughout the process?
Yeah, so I definitely think that something from beginning, one of the first meetings we had, we talked about as a group how we felt the art department sometimes is its own little space and scales. So with the collection that we wanted to build, we really wanted to pick works that would be able to cross into different areas of study, whether that be women gender studies, which we definitely touched on. We looked at a lot of like sustainability pieces, which we thought could touch into some of the sciences, or even anthropology, even the business school we wanted to kind of keep in mind. So I definitely think that with the works that we chose, we looked at a broad range, which could overlap into so many different topics. Also, we always kept in mind how artists are looking at the past to make space for the future and for bodies who are unseen. So in that way, we were always like keeping in mind the canon of art history, but in relationship to the works that are being created now. And I think it's going to be really beneficial to the student body at Wake Forest.
Agree, Maddie, and I think we can all say that all the works that we chose, we were really thinking about the fact that this is a teaching collection and that the works are meant for the students. It's a body of students that are choosing the works. It's very student-led, student everything. So that was always at the forefront of our decision. The next question I want to field to Chrisanne. Chrisanne, I was wondering if you could talk to us a little bit about maybe what was the most surprising or most enlightening part of this experience. We have a couple of questions that are sort of about that aspect of the process. So, yeah.
Absolutely. That is such a difficult question. Going into this experience, I honestly didn't really know what to expect. I was excited. I loved art. There was still a lot I needed to learn in terms of, you know, reconciling what I wanted with what everybody else wanted, communicating with galleries, more the technical side. I was surprised at what a beautiful experience this was. I mean, we all got to know each other. We laughed together. We cried together. We had days where I left the building and I was just like, oh my gosh, what just happened? Like, just spent all night and morning thinking about things that had been said and the way these pieces made me feel. So I guess I was just so surprised at how much of an emotional and like growth process this would be and I think all of us feel that way, just how much we grew both individually, academically, personally together. It's just a really amazing experience, and I'm so grateful for it. It's incredible.
or Kristen, and I think there's definitely that aspect of getting that like hands-on experience with the gallery world, which was so cool. The next question I want to ask, we have a couple of questions that are about this, but the idea of passing on some knowledge maybe to later committees if there are younger students on this panel. So Lucy, Owen, I was curious, do you have any advice for future committees on the process, and what would you kind of tell them?
Absolutely. I was really nervous coming in as one of only a couple of sophomores. And I think my biggest advice to anyone of any age would be just to listen first and observe kind of what everyone else has to give you. We all come kind of from different areas and we all come with different interests to the table. And I think it's so important that we all like really listen before we collaborated with each other. I also think that not being afraid to speak your opinion has been something we've really learned about, for better or for worse, on the committee. We've all kind of discovered each other's tastes and understood what each other are interested in. And I think that has really helped me develop kind of a sense of self, is like feeling comfortable speaking in front of so many people like I am now, and doing all kinds of like just forms of expression that I hadn't been able to do until I was on this committee. Yeah, I'm really grateful to have the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Lucy. And this is just another question that it's kind of been sort of throughout the questions that were submitted, but I'm going to field it to Amy. I'm curious, is there a certain work that you're most proud of that we collected, or is there a certain experience about this that you're most proud of, or anything like that?
A really hard question. Okay, I think for me, what I was really looking for in this process was works that I really felt passionate to, and works that I really felt brought a lot, both in terms of art history and both in terms of starting a conversation on campus. And I think for me, the work that I like absolutely love, I would have bought if I could and stolen it out from the school, would have been the Betty Tompkins work. I think it does so much to kind of talk about the issues that we experience on campus. And even just the conversation that we had in class, we ended up talking about for a full hour and 15 minutes, our experiences, our relationship to her work and how it made us feel. And it just really made me think a lot about how that work would have an impact on campus.
Sharing that with us, Amy, I think we all couldn't agree more. I think some of us are tearing up a little bit maybe. But our last question that I'm going to ask today is to Leah. Leah, if you're comfortable answering this question, sort of what is the importance and the impact of having art in our campus community, and what do you think the lasting impact is for future students who see these works?
I think, and I hope that as we've seen through past trips, especially the 1993 trip, paralleled so much with this year, how art shapes so much dialogue on campus and its role in leading conversations that maybe haven't been touched on before. And I think that in this collection, we did such a strong job of collecting a body of work that touches on so many issues and so many contemporary relevant events and important ideas that I think have been ignored for so long, possibly on this campus and in the world around us. And in having art, we can lead these conversations and we can inspire others to start talking about them and to be guided by the work around us.
I think the art that we've chosen this year really does fulfill a lot of those missions that we set out in terms of intervening, representing, uncovering different truths and issues that are all throughout our campus, our institutions, the world that we just live in general. So hopefully this work can definitely serve as a means to really have those conversations. So it's now been an hour that we've spent, and I'm hopefully that everyone enjoyed this time, got to see all the works, enjoyed the reveal, enjoyed us talking about it and everything. We are so glad to have had all of you in attendance. And once again, I just want to reiterate that our 60th anniversary is coming up, so definitely be on the lookout for more events with our campus, our art community, and everything if you're interested in any of that. And with that being said, I want to close this out and just say a huge thank you again to everyone for joining us tonight. And yeah, thank you.